Welcome to the show with no promotion. This is the Dynasty Stock Market with bigz and DFK, and I totally forgot to go ahead and push this out on Player Profiler News because I was busy looking up plane tickets to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, so that we can bring you content during the Super Bowl weekend, whatever. As part of Player Profiler News, and that's the goal for 2025. How are you doing, DFK? I heard that you were not feeling the best.
Yeah, just probably caught something over Thanksgiving. A lot of kids running around, but I'm fine, man. Excited. Another awesome week in the NFL. A lot of craziness. Had another snow game, and we're back in another bi-apocalypse. And really, everything is kind of heating up. Unfortunately, there's some leagues where playoffs start now, and some guys are missing from lineups. So it's going to be a tough week to navigate. But hopefully you got Isaac Guerendo.
Well, that's a great story. So everybody should know by now that Christian McCaffrey was placed on IR yesterday, and then shortly after that, Jordan Mason went on IR. So as soon as I heard the CMC news, I jumped on Sleeper and started adding Jordan Mason. As soon as I finished the claim, Jordan Mason went on IR, and Isaac Guerendo became the RB1 in San Francisco. So I did what I had to do as far as waiver claims and stuff. I did have a trade offer this morning for Guerendo for a third and a fourth, and I said,
Nope.
We'll get to some trades in a second. So that story was kind of like the biggest news of the last few days. The snow game was huge. The Jerry Jeudy performance was absolutely huge. Ooh. I saw an interesting stat this morning that 15% of his career fantasy production has come since Jameis Winston took over in Cleveland. That's 1/6.
Wow. So, yeah. Let that sink in.
Of his total career production. So
I had a kind of a awful / great trade I did where I traded for CMC and Jerry Jeudy. So it's like I get the best of both worlds there.
Well, if it's a dynasty, you at least have CMC with another full year off to try and see what he can do, and hopefully his tendonite, his Achilles, both of them. This isn't a situation where it's such a degrading injury, kind of like Todd Gurley, where it was like once it hit, it just it went downhill so fast, and hopefully CMC is not in that same boat. But along the Isaac Guerendo storyline, a lot of people are coming out today, and I'm seeing it on Twitter and Blue Sky, and they're making a suggestion that I always do anyway. They're talking about it in the Scott Fish Bowl. They're talking about it in general with waivers. But especially now towards the end of your season, look at what waiver dollars, what fab dollars your opponents have, and then make your waiver adjustments that way. So in a league that I'm trying to pick up Guerendo, I still have my full $100 of fab, and the next closest guy has $56. So I don't have to blow out the bank. I just have to cover whatever that guy has. So $57 will do it. Nobody can get Guerendo except me, and I proceed that way. So don't accept any trade offers for Guerendo, and check your fab levels in your league to see and just outbid. Price is right. Outbid by $1.
Yeah. I'm holding. I'm starting. If you're a rebuilder, I don't know, man. It seems like Mason, in theory, could come back or go try to get a contract somewhere else at some point. But just with the health of CMC, next year's not guaranteed anyway. And you were trying to give me a little bit of hope with CMC, but who knows? Next year could be the Isaac Guerendo show.
All right, we got a trade to talk about right now. I got other trades that have been completed, but this one just hit.
Oh, snap.
Okay, so in this league, this is an orphan that I took over earlier this year. We had a distribution draft. I didn't have any plans on competing or anything. I am on the cusp of the playoffs. Let's see. Currently, I am one game out of the playoffs. All right. So I'm just on the cusp, and I have a 4-game winning streak that I'm sitting on. But this happens to be a bipocalypse weekend. I am down a quarterback. My bench quarterbacks right now are Josh Johnson, Jake Browning, and Skylar Thompson. Not great, but again, I took over an orphan that was in last place last year, and I'm about to hit the playoffs. I have Tua, and I have Anthony Richardson, who has a bye this week. I need a quarterback. Considering the fact that my bench is Josh Johnson, Jake Browning, and Skylar Thompson, there's nobody on the waiver wire. So I'm looking at the matchups, and I'm looking at I find a guy who's out of it. So I throw out an offer. I'm like, take Jake Browning, take Deuce Vaughn. Here, have a fourth. Give me Aiden O'Connell. He had Aiden O'Connell and Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr more than Aiden O'Connell. However, Aiden O'Connell has the second best rest of season schedule for quarterbacks, including week 14, which is a bipocalypse weekend, or it's a bipocalypse week, and he's going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks in the NFL. And this last week, O'Connell came out and showed that he can do it, especially in this new offense, especially with Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers. He's got some weapons, and he put together a game against the Kansas City Chiefs. He said, I'm here, you guys, 2 touchdowns, protected the ball. He's not a turnover machine like Gardner Minshew. He was somebody that I was saying from April should be the starting quarterback for the Raiders. I have some investment in the Raiders, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. They go with Minshew. Minshew tanks the season. Cool. We get a high draft pick, whatever. So I offer this little package for Aiden O'Connell. The guy turns it down. I'm like, I understand Jake Browning is, kind of like a wing and a prayer. Deuce Vaughn probably won't ever do anything. The 4th rounder could come in handy, and it's Aiden O'Connell. But he already has 2 other starting quarterbacks, and he's not competing anyway. He comes back, his counter is Aiden O'Connell straight up for Ben Sinnott. I have Kate Otten and Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith. This is a smash. But I wanted to get your feedback.
Yeah. You adding Ben Sinnott to your team?
I'm giving Ben Sinnott.
Oh yeah. I think I might have told you earlier in the season I did a trade like this, actually giving Ben Sinnott straight up for a quarterback. And I mean, for a contender, that's what you got to do sometimes. I tried to sell O'Connell last week, crickets or sometimes no ways. But he put up some points, 22 fantasy points, something like that. And yeah, I mean, he's going to be the starter rest of the season. I was hyping Ben Sinnott preseason. I'm sure he'll still be fine once Ertz is gone. But the thing is, in a lot of the leagues, there's a lot of tight ends available, even on waivers sometimes, depending on the league. And if not, they're not that expensive to go and get later.
Right. And the fact that I have Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts, and Kate Otten already. Now, this is a team where Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith are in my flex. That's how dire this team is. But I'm still competitive. You know what I mean? I did want to talk about Jonnu Smith a little bit today because the dude has absolutely flashed the last 4 weeks. And on other shows, I've been talking about him. Really liked him entering the season. I talked about him on a podcast with Andrew Cooper, the tight end guru at Koopa Fiasco. And we were talking about guys outside of the top 12 that should have really good seasons. He really likes Hunter Henry, and I really like Jonnu Smith. And we both kind of came to an agreement on that. So Jonnu has absolutely taken off the last few weeks. All he needed to do was get acclimated to that offense, which is structured the same. It's a Kyle Shanahan clone, and we know what George Kittle can do. Jonnu Smith can do the same thing, and he has been. He's been in the top 3 tight ends, I think the last 4 weeks in a row or something like that. He's no Brock Bowers, but Jonnu is so. I also noticed right before we came on that Jonnu Smith was the number one trade candidate, trade asset, trade piece on ADP Daddy for a while, or Dynasty Daddy.
Yeah.
What are you giving up for Jonnu Smith? It's a tight end, which, I mean, but there's a couple tight ends this year that we can play and flex, which is not something that we could have said for a long time. So what is your take on Jonnu Smith at the moment?
Yeah, and I think for one of the shows, one of the homework was to bring some trades, and I had traded Jalen Coker in a 26th third and got Jonnu and Taysom Hill. Taysom ends up getting injured the next week, which is fine, but I think Jonnu makes up for the production loss there. And I've been hearing 2/3 for some folks. Some folks are not fully bought in. Jonnu has one more year on the contract with Miami, and I mean, we're seeing what we wanted to see from when he was with the Patriots and signed an actually huge contract with them and did absolutely zero with them. But now we're seeing he looks super lean. Only 6'3", so he's already more of a move tight end. Not a traditional tight end type, more of a big wide
slot
receiver. So I'm definitely going out to get him. I'd give a late second for Jonnu Smith.
Now, just a quick update. 35, 33, and 32 points in the last 3 weeks. Tight end 3, tight end 2, tight end 4. In the last 7 games, he's had top 4 finishes 4 times. And that's not necessarily like a reflection of his targets. He's had 8, 11, and 11 targets his last 3 weeks. He comes up against a pretty tough schedule the next few weeks. The Jets, Houston, San Francisco, and then Cleveland in the final, which are in the playoff final, which is that's fine. That's an okay matchup, but Jets, Houston, San Francisco is pretty tough. But I like he has absolutely flashed the potential that we knew that he had when he was in Tennessee with Arthur Smith, and he's been in a 2 tight end situation ever since, including Kyle Pitts, who we're about to get to. So yeah, I love Jonnu Smith. I had a lot of shares of him and just waited for him to kind of hit this year, and he finally has hit in the last 7 weeks, and it's been beautiful. Okay, so I wake up to trade offers this morning. Now there's a program, a website, something out there. It's called Dynasty Trade Calculator. Now, Dynasty Trade Calculator is run by John Bosch, who is part of the Fantasy Cares team that runs the Scott Fish Bowl and all that stuff. All right, so John Bosch has these listener leagues for Dynasty Trade Calculator podcast, and another orphan I took over this year that wasn't very good, and now I'm like kind of contending. So John Bosch and Bob Gilchrist, who you will know from the Fantasy Cares YouTube shows, they give away jerseys. You should be watching the 25 Days of Christmas right now, or today. So I saw them at the Fantasy Expo at the poker tournament, and John Bosch was at my table, at my first table. And I said, I was looking over your guys' roster, and you guys have kind of a dearth of quarterbacks. I got a bunch. Make me an offer. I'm sitting on like Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence and Jalen Hurts and Aaron Rodgers. And I'm thinking that those 4 quarterbacks going into the season, that's pretty good stable of quarterbacks. And they didn't really have that. And I was like, hey, let's make a deal. He was like, oh no, we're fine. I see Bob Gilchrist the next day. And I'm like, hey, I was just telling John that your guys' team needs quarterbacks. And he was like, no, we're fine. So this morning I wake up to a trade offer. They want Aaron Rodgers for a 26 second. And I'm like, absolutely. I'll kick a can a year down the road and get rid of a 40-year-old quarterback who hasn't done what we thought he was going to do. As soon as I hit accept, they send another trade offer. They want Kyle Pitts and a second from this year for their first this year. So Kyle Pitts and a second for a first. I already have Hunter Henry. I have Trey McBride. I'm good. Boom, smash that. So essentially what I did was I traded Kyle Pitts and this year's second and Aaron Rodgers, and I got back a first and a second.
Okay.
What's your evaluation on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am on board getting the draft picks, man. Getting anything for Rodgers is great for anyone who's getting out of him. He's never been mobile, so you're not getting any floor points from that. So, and we all know what time it is. He's one of the oldest players in the league. So that's fine. And in Kyle Pitts, we just haven't gotten the production. And I still think, regardless of even if we were getting the production, you can still make up for moving on from a tight end through other tight ends that you can find for just cheaper.
Even if it's a 26 second rounder.
So
here's the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it as, because it was the same team, and I had this thought when I was reading their second trade offer, like, why don't you just make it all into one big trade? Because the way that my brain puts it together is that I'm giving up Aaron Rodgers and my 25 second, and I'm getting back, or Aaron Rodgers and Kyle Pitts and my 25 second, and I'm getting back a 26 second and a 25 first.
Yeah.
So it becomes a package in my mind. I don't understand why they split it up. I think maybe they were looking at the values in their own calculator and stuff. Also, Here's the thing: go make your own calculator and make your calculator, make a website around
it. I think sometimes when you send an offer to somebody, if there's too much, I will think to myself, yeah, there might just be too much distracting from me getting this done. So sometimes I just keep it a little bit more simple and just do it that way.
So you're saying they were trying to keep each piece of it simple?
Yeah, but like if I'm getting that first, I'm fine moving. Look, I do like the 25 class, the second round there. I like it a lot, but still, it sounds like you're walking away with the first and the second in 2026. I'm fine with that, man. Like, yeah. I was gonna say even with Jonnu, like some of these tight ends develop late, so I think we're gonna see that from Kyle Pitts. But you're still getting the first and the second. In my mind, you're talking about packaging stuff in. In my mind, Rodgers isn't worth any of that. So you're getting a big win on Rodgers, and then you're getting basically even price on Pitts or re-roll, however you want to look at it.
Right. No, I think the way that they structured it in sending two separate trades, I don't mind Rodgers for a pick in 2026, especially in the second round, because you know who's coming out in 2026 and probably will be a second rounder in rookie drafts? Rocco Becht, my guy.
Your boy.
So that's somebody that at 21 years old, I will totally replace Aaron Rodgers for. And I don't have to sit there and watch Aaron Rodgers struggle next year too. And then on the other side, you have the Kyle Pitts and my second for a first rounder. And to me, that's a no-brainer. I move up a tier in draft picks, and I'm already covered in tight ends. And Kyle Pitts is somebody that is frustrating to own, and I don't want that. I want somebody that, I don't care if he doesn't have the ceiling of Kyle Pitts. I want somebody with a higher floor than Kyle Pitts that I can count on for 8 to 10 points every week, even if he's not going to get me the 17 or 20 that Kyle Pitts may. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you really want to, you can cash some of that draft capital in to make that happen.
Right. So I think that's I think I did okay.
And I just a trade deadline passed last night, so now I can't trade. But I was trying to package 2 firsts to get your boy Brock Bowers and could not get that done. And that team actually purposefully tanked, so it was 101 and the 26 first got denied for Brock Bowers. So you can't buy everything with that 26 first, but I'm sure you can get something. Maybe you can do first and second, or to get like a McBride, or maybe I don't know, some Laporta or something like that. If you're really just trying to get an upgrade at that spot, but it sounds like you already got some guys for now.
At this point, I feel like there's nobody out there worth targeting as much as Brock Bowers. I love McBride. I love Laporta. I'm not giving up a whole lot for them. Brock Bowers, I'm giving up the farm. Like, I don't care. The things that dude is doing as a rookie, and I know that we talked about it with Sam Laporta last year, and then we saw him fall off. But the thing about the Detroit offense versus the Raiders offense is that Detroit already had some things in place. they had a very young Jameson Williams who was dealing with some things and was only ever going to have breakout potential moving forward. They had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is their target leader, blah, blah, blah. The Raiders could sign T. Higgins in the offseason. They'll bring back Jacoby Myers, who's best in a slot role, which Brock Bowers is basically playing right now anyway. We see what they're doing as far as like the current offensive coordinator and what he's trying to do to get Brock Bowers the ball. I don't see a potential where suddenly Brock Bowers becomes the third option in this offense next year. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that we're going to see the fall off that we saw with Sam.
No, the only like pre-season concern I had with Bowers was Devontae Adams, because historically anyone around Devontae Adams has experienced being in that black hole of targets where he's just the target monster, and Brock Bowers overcame that as a rookie. And then Adams is gone. There are not many other people that receive the target share that Adams does. So it's like, even if they get a T. Higgins, there's no one that's going to stop Brock Bowers at this point.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Anyway, all right. So, anything to report on your side? What are you dealing with in your leagues this week? I know you talked about trade deadlines and playoffs. I had my first week in a playoff this week. Took it in the shorts. Like this, I was in third place in the league, and I was like, and it was first week of the playoffs. This is the league that I talked about where the guy was like, "Can we change the rules because the week 14 bye?" And I was like, "No, we're good." I lost in the first week of the playoffs. I was very surprised, but shout out to Sweating Glitter, my girl, Scott Fishbowl, West Coast, NorCal. She took me out, and it sucked. But and it was a surprise. It was a surprise. I was projected to win fairly easily, and I lost by I want to say 100 points. Anyway, moving on from that.
Yeah.
So there are some leagues where there is no trade deadline. There are some leagues where the trade deadline passed, and there are some leagues where this is your final week to trade. Including and also we have playoffs starting in some leagues this last week, playoffs starting this week. I don't know a lot of teams a lot of leagues that did that, and then playoffs starting in 2 weeks. So what are you looking at in your slate?
Yeah. And I loved last week because no one was on bye. There's a lot of high scoring games. That was awesome. And all of my advice was, don't worry about the week 13. I mean, I know it sucks that you lost one of your matches, but
Right.
For folks that didn't have playoffs, then I was talking about week 14, because you got to be ready for this. And now it's here. I don't like trying to get ready for a week like this in the week of. It's going to be hard to replace Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow and all of the other three teams and all the related players around them. I mean, that's going to be tough. But I'm loving some of the running backs that have, even Guerendo. How I have been saying in all of my waiver shows, pick up these running backs, the rookie ones. Well, keep doing that. Keep getting the Ray Davis. Keep getting these guys that are in injury away. Stash them on your bench. Get ready for that next round. If you do have some final playoff pushes, I don't care, dude. I'll buy high on a Jerry Jeudy, not crazy high. I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant on the first. I think sometimes it's that someone's going to kind of put up a fence that's the cost. I'm not doing that, but you know what I mean? Like, let's go after guys that we know are going to produce. The reason I say Jeudy is because Winston already has 2 of the 6 highest passing yard totals of the season of any quarterback, and he's only played 5 games. So this team is there's just everyone you can score some points. Even buy low ones. Like Elijah Moore. I know he had a huge game, but I just know the cost is going to be less. And
if Cedric Tillman is healthy this week, Jeudy doesn't do that. It gets spread around. But Cedric Tillman wasn't healthy. He missed this week, so there you go.
Yeah, use that for ammo to bring that cost back down. And it was a revenge game versus the Broncos, the team that drafted him in the first round. But still, I'm preparing my team for this stretch. Like that team where I traded for McCaffrey, I already was set at running back when I traded for McCaffrey, not only that, after trading for McCaffrey, traded for Chase Brown, and I didn't need either two of those guys, but I don't want my league mates necessarily trading those guys to my opponents. And that only cost me like a second and a player, by the way. I didn't pay a first for a CMC. But anyway, go get some depth because we don't know what's going to happen, and you're not going to be able to bail yourself out on the waivers,
Right.
most likely. So I'm just making moves. I made literally in the fantasy points listener league, I made 5 trades yesterday in that league, and then the day before I had made 5 trades just because that was a rebuilding team. I'm getting Nick Westbrook-Akine out of here because he's scoring some points. I traded away David Moore. I traded away somehow Matt Collins. Trading away all these ancillary pieces that I don't need. That maybe help somebody else in some of these super deep flex leagues. So whether you're a rebuilder contender, you got some work to do. Clean up that roster, get it efficient, whether it's trading in players for picks for those rebuilders or trying to get some strong depth or even consolidating to get that starting roster in order. If you're in a shallow league, make sure you're the one that's got, if you have a Baker Mayfield and a Jared Goff, and another third quarterback, maybe consolidate and get a rushing quarterback. You know what I mean?
Right. For the playoff run. And yeah. I like that you brought up those 3 wide receivers, specifically David Moore, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and
Matt Collins.
Because all 3 of those guys over the last 3 years have been guys that low floor, low ceiling, but at some point around week 10 or week 11, you're looking at them and kind of salivating, and they hit the trending on sleepers so that they're in like the top 10 every year. And so it sounds like what you did was you grabbed them off waivers over the last couple of years.
All $0. And I got
turn them into trade assets.
Third for Matt Collins for no reason. I don't even understand it. And like third for Nick, and fourth for David Moore, stuff like that.
Right. Well, I just want to say this is a message to the NFL Rules Committee. Please allow Matt Collins to play barefoot. That's all.
Yeah. He doesn't wear shoes in regular life, so why on the NFL field?
Raiders legend Matt Collins. All right. We got a question from Jason Scott. Thank you for watching, Jason. Would you trade Winston and Devontae Smith for late 2025 first, Trey Benson and Noah Gray if you have Winston and Smith on a non-contender? I say absolutely.
Yeah, I like that first in this class. Smith,
right.
I said I was stop disrespecting Devonta Smith, though. It sucks that he's injured right now. But we know in general he's not usually going to explode unless A.J. Brown's out. A.J. Brown's out at least once a year. But other than that, the difference making there is sporadic. It's still a rushing team, more so now with Barkley. So, man, hey, I'm fine with it because that's kind of the value for Smith and Winston. Unfortunately he's kind of a throw-in piece because we don't know what his future is going to be like next year. The main reason Winston doesn't retain starting jobs is because of interceptions, and if there wasn't a game to show what Winston is other than last night, that was a Jameis Winston game. He can lead the league in yardage while also throwing 2 pick sixes in the same game.
Right. Everybody was like, "Oh, look at Bo Nix." Well, Jameis Winston threw more touchdowns for the Broncos than Bo Nix did. So
yeah,
that's just kind of how it went. Now, the 2 interesting pieces there for me. First of all, the 25 first is the most valuable out of all those. Devontae Smith, and no, I'm not disrespecting Devontae Smith. He's actually a guy that a few weeks ago, and I probably talked about it on this show, I was trying to get for the playoff run because he had a really good schedule. He had just come back, and A.J. Brown went out. Devontae Smith started to flash, and then he got hurt. So Godspeed, Devontae. Get yourself back in there and help me out. Trey Benson, James Conner just signed an extension. That kind of hurt me in my Trey Benson shares heart because I was hoping that Conner was kind of on his way out and Trey Benson was going to elevate next year. But Noah Gray, and what we're seeing from Travis Kelce is he's still a viable tight end, but he's not the guaranteed tight end 1 or 2 that he has been, which indicates the fall. And so he's still ownable, but he's very much a tradable asset if you can get some value for him because of his name. And Noah Gray is set to take over as long as they don't do something rash and, go out and, draft Lachey or Rondé Gadsden next year. Noah Gray seems to be the next guy up in Kansas City as soon as Kelce leaves. And even with Kelce there, he's had 2 touchdown games, and he's showed himself to be kind of a viable piece. He's somebody I've avoided just because I know that right now he's not the dude. And every time he flashes is when his value spikes a little bit, and I'm never willing to pay that. But then when he doesn't do that, I'm still kind of apprehensive to go grab him. But that may be changing over the next few weeks. And I'm looking at Noah Gray, and I'm like, how long actually does Travis Kelce have? So I'm willing to go ahead and throw a Jameis Winston straight up for a Noah Gray, because I know Winston is a backup quarterback. As long as he stays in a Watson-led Brown system, and I really like the prospect of Noah Gray, even if he doesn't hit. Him straight up for Jameis is, I think, is probably okay.
Yeah, I was so early on Noah Gray when he was first drafted. I'm like, yeah, this is the Kelce replacement. It did nothing those first couple seasons, and then they obviously pick up a tight end in Jared Wiley this year, and then they give him a contract extension, Noah Gray, that is this year. So I'm like, okay, I guess the rookie's not a factor. And then he starts balling out these past few weeks. So I like it. I didn't expect another 2 touchdown performance, but he's still involved in the offense. They're going to have Rashee Rice back next year. So you wonder how that affects things. But long term, Kelce, I think next year would be his max last season. If they win the title this year, it's just such a perfect setup for a walk off in the sunset that he could do it a year early, and it's just a perfect time to do it. Like if they win, I'm now even thinking Noah Gray is more valuable if they win the title. So interesting move. It was a good point by Jason. Yes, there's jobs open across the league. I know Winston will have some value, so it's not like he can't do anything. But the thing is that right now Winston has some value, so you can cash in and put that over into something that you think may have another value spike. And I'm not mad at it, because for the most part I got Winston for free anyway.
It's funny because I look around the league and I see some storylines. So I understand the competitive spirit. I've been an athlete for my entire life. It hurts me that I haven't been playing hardball the last couple seasons, last couple years. I still feel that urge to get out there and do that. In my brain, I'm like, I know I can, and I need to beat people. I need to win. I need to perform. I get it, and I'm a 50-year-old man, right? So I can imagine being in my mid 30s and playing at that high competitive level. But knowing what I know, I look at situations like Tua, hardcore concussions. I look at Kelce. I look at Aaron Rodgers, 40-year-old man. These guys have bank accounts that are more than I will ever earn in my entire lifetime. On top of that, they have situations where they can instantly monetize whatever they're doing. Kelce and his brother doing a podcast, immediate ad revenue and all that stuff, right? And then you look at Kelce again. His fiance, we'll call her fiance, is one of the biggest pop stars on the planet and is literally a billionaire. And still the competitive drive is so much that they don't just hang it up and walk away. Tua has a bank account that he could start creating businesses and still have enough to have generational wealth bestowed upon his children. And Aaron Rodgers has the same and no family to give it to. And Travis Kelce has the potential to be one of the biggest names post NFL on the planet. And the desire for competition is still so strong that they don't just hang it up and walk away. And I'm looking at them going knowing what I know, I would hang it up immediately, right?
Hey, we saw Brady even come back, so
Right.
it's one of those things. They're
And
just
Brady
wired
still
different.
wants to be in it. He's like,
Yeah,
let me get in that Raiders like
yeah.
decision
If you love
making
the
process.
game, and look, you and I are doing what we're doing. People, this is a fun game. All right, so uh, no matter what, I would say football is more fun than whatever business Kelsey's gonna open up. So they'll play until they can't, and they know that at a certain point they can't get back into the game. So it's like do it while you can.
Right. And I don't see coaching spots for any of those guys. All right. All right. Let's do some trade talk stuff. All right. We saw John Smith already. Number 2 in the trades over the last 30 days has been Cortland Sutton. What are you looking at for Cortland Sutton? He's kind of like helped Bo Nix. I'm seeing Cortland Sutton straight up for a second rounder in 2025. This one's bad. Cortland Sutton and a 26th fourth rounder, which is kind of whatever, for straight up for Tucker Kraft. So obviously that guy was like in tight end need. What are you looking at if you are trying to get off of Cortland Sutton, and what are you looking at if you're trying to acquire him? And do you want to acquire him?
Yeah, I want to acquire him. He's having his best season, I think, and he was looking for a contract before the season started. Actually got denied, and I thought that might ruffle some feathers, but he's playing through it, and he's playing well. And when you're doing it with the rookie quarterback, a lot of the credit has to go to you. So I think he earned himself a contract. Whether that's with them or not, that's fine. But if it is with him, he's, I want to say he's the only game in town, but he's the only wide receiver 1 on that team. There's a lot of guys that are, putting up some points, and I like what Bo Nix is doing as far as if he is paired back with him. If Sutton gets a chance to choose where he wants to go, I think he'll choose a good opportunity as well. I just, he's not the athlete and the dominant guy that I would want to really pay up for. So, yeah, in the second round range, I'm fine. But for a contender, fine, I'll do that now. But honestly, I would rather wait until the offseason. I just don't see his value climbing to an unattainable range, even in the offseason. So if I'm kind of in the middle and looking at pieces, I would want to just wait until I see who the rookies are and where they land. But for contenders, I'm totally fine trading for a second and putting him in my flex.
And last night he had 102 yards. It's the most number of yards he's had in the last month. But kind of what gets lost in his relationship with Bo Nix is that last night, a full third of Bo Nix's yards and the touchdown he threw to Marvin Mims. Shout out Marvin Mims.
Yeah.
Doing what we knew. Like they need to do that like 4 times a game. Why don't they do that? Come on, Sean Payton. Get with it.
Yeah, remember like the beginning of his rookie season, we're like, oh yeah, he got this huge play, and then well, let's see more of that. Nope.
Nothing. He only does good for me in the leagues I have that are deep and have return yards. All right. Now, over the last 30 days, it's funny. It looks like the number 3 guy I'll talk about in a second. Number 4, 5, and 6 are all 49ers running backs. We already talked about them. And number 2 or 3 looks like Gus Edwards. What are we doing with Gus Edwards? J.K. Dobbins went down. Kamani Vidal, who is just a darling, like in the fantasy space. Everybody loves him. And this was a game where he should have been okay going up against the Falcons and getting some run, and he did not. So what are we looking at with Gus Bus?
Gus Bus. I love Gus Bus. A guy who averaged, over 5 yards carry his career, started this season well under that for the first time. So unfortunately in one league I dropped him, and then, he ends up getting some run later. But if he's not going to produce when Dobbins is out, then it's going to be tough to want to hold on to him. I saw him go for 4th after the game this weekend. So I'm still willing to pay that in some spots. I think when we first started this show, I was saying how that's why I like having those extra fourths, as throw-ins, because down the stretch you can get a Gus Edwards. I have, I think a season or two ago, when before some of the Gus injuries, I traded like a fourth to get Gus. Then he kind of went away, and I dropped him. Someone picked him up. Then I traded another fourth in the same season and picked him back up because I was like, dang it, but I'm going to just get him. And it worked in that spot. But I don't want to give any more than that. He's also got the age against him long term. But I almost want to guarantee he scores more than 5 points this next week.
Yeah. And
now, KC, tough defense for what it's worth. It's just,
I don't see McCormick don't care.
Yeah, exactly. We saw Chuba Hubbard produce. People can produce. It's just you got to get lucky. But only one touchdown on the season, so we'll see, man. But I'm in. I'll still buy for fourth. I'm not gonna let that down game get in the way. To be honest, it's a buying opportunity. He's the only guy I think. And the only thing I didn't mention was, the rookie. He's still a rookie, man. Kamani Vidal, we want him to be this great thing. He had that nice first game, really big catch that he got, but he hasn't been involved and didn't do much in this past game either.
And he looked incredible in the preseason, which there's a long list of guys who have, but you keep throwing out that 4 number. So what I'm seeing from Dynasty Daddy is that he's going straight up a lot for late seconds and early thirds.
Well, then, no.
Is that a little too rich for you?
Yeah, it's just because I could probably get someone else for that cost. I just don't want to do it. Don't see the need to do it, man.
And I'm looking at his 2025 prospects, and he's a 4.25 million cap hit or 1.125 million dead cap, which means that if the Chargers find somebody that they think is going to overtake Gus Edwards, he's gone.
Yeah, they will, and I don't even think J.K. Dobbins' role is safe next year.
No, just because of his injuries, and we love Kamani Vidal because of his early 2024 kind of breakout potential, his combine value, his what we saw from him during his college seasons. Although he was never the RB1, but he was always the most efficient. He was just never the touch leader. So there is a world in which he takes over in 2025. The problem is his draft capital is so low that the Chargers could very easily see somebody like a Jaden Ott in the second round or the third round. And this 2025 running back class is so deep. The fact that there are so many guys who could have come out this year, but stayed for NIL money, Raheem Sanders, Jaquinton Jackson,
Travion Henderson.
Travion Henderson could have been RB1 of this class. He stayed at Ohio State in a two-headed role, mistake. Just crazy because of the money. So while we want to talk about Kamani Vidal, the Chargers could very easily draft a rookie running back next year that would overtake him.
So I didn't jump on the train with everyone on Kamani Vidal. I'm fine being wrong, but it's mainly about what you said. Just the draft class too strong. And with Gus, that price, wouldn't you rather give that late third for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine? Someone who's I'm just saying I'm taking Westbrook over Gus at this point. That's all I'm saying.
I think
I'm assuming Gus is a flex. If you have to, first of all, Nick Westbrook, 20 passes and he's got 5, 6, 8 touchdowns, whatever he's got. We know it's not sustainable. We understand. It is a record. Whatever he's doing, I just looked at it from the Titans. He just set some record because it's so efficient that it's insane.
Well, he does that every year. He's completely touchdown and he's touchdown dependent, and it's for 2 or 3 games every season. Yeah. And you can't predict it. So he spikes and then he hits the waiver wire and everybody goes crazy.
Yeah.
and then he just disappears again.
No, but point is, I'd rather use my third on something else. Like, maybe we'll find something else later. But yeah, man, like you said, with James Conner, we've seen Alvin Kamara get signed, even though they've got a Miller. We've seen Chuba Hubbard get signed, even though they've got Brooks over there. So those are some of the teams where we know they're not going to be adding a running back since they have their 1 and 2, but not many teams are in that situations where everybody's safe in that running back room. So Chargers is definitely one of them where they locked in that O-line. Next year, I wouldn't be surprised if they get a running back.
Yeah, it's funny because I had Vidal in the same tier as Guerendo, preseason, and then now you look at it and look at what's happened. Vidal is still kind of like, is he gonna do it? My hometown boy Tucker Kraft, backup tight end that does nothing, had a catch. Like he had I think as many points this week as Vidal did, and Tucker Kraft is not an option in fantasy at all. And then Guerendo, suddenly you have a rash of injuries in 49ers camp, and Guerendo is like the darling of everybody. He's the RB1. You look at Braylon Allen, he's on the cusp.
Yeah.
And we all thought that Jonathan Brooks was going to come out and overtake Chubbard.
Ooh.
Didn't happen. So it's hard to kind of like predict what's going to happen over the course of the season. And we can do our due diligence. We can look at spot track contracts, and we can look at like injury situations. Who thought James Conner would last a 17-game season without like missing?
I know, right?
Injury?
It would be interesting to look at some running back like hypotheticals for one show. Maybe go through the teams and be like, who's targeting a running back? Like if we're doing an off-season show type of thing.
Yeah, a running back special. And if I don't know, I have the perfect candidate. I did that at the beginning of the year last year. I had I had a quarterback show, a running back show, a wide receiver show, and a tight end show with experts. And I had Noah Hills on for the running backs, and we had a really good 2-hour-long podcast talking about running backs coming into the draft and stuff. It was good. And maybe if his law school schedule allows, he can do that again. All right. I have another trade straight up. Chigo Quanquo for Gus Edwards. I do that in a second. I mean a heartbeat, not a second rounder. But other than that, it looks like 25 thirds and 25 seconds, late seconds, early thirds is
for a contender. I'll still do it. Just not. I'm trying to do fourths. I think you can maybe pull it off with the down game that he just had.
All right, and the next let's.
And I've got about 5 minutes. I'm going live at the top of the hour.
This will be quick. So Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, those guys have their stock has really increased over the last couple weeks. Bucky seemed to be the touch leader this week in Tampa Bay over Rachaad White. And it looks like he's going not a lot of straight up trades. He's involved in a lot of packages. 26 first, 25. Okay, so Bucky Irving now is going for a late first, early second. Ooh, are you willing to pay that?
Yes.
Okay.
It looks awesome.
Right. And Chase Brown, on the other hand, is going for 26 first, 25 first. So he's basically in the same range.
Yeah, I'm buying both. And again, this is one where for Chase Brown, I want to know. You're worried about the future. You're worried about who they draft next year. But you've got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, as far as highly paid guys. If this team is investing in running back, they're insane. So they have to focus on defense. They have the worst defense in the league. They allow the most. They're the league leaders in most points allowed. It's pretty pathetic. 1 point ahead of my Cowboys, so pretty brutal. But they can score points. So offense isn't the issue. Maybe they're going to have to figure out a replacement for Higgins, but I don't think they need to worry about replacing running back. So I'm all in on those guys because again, with the Bucky Irving situation, they have a full running back room, so they're not attacking running back at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bucky Irving flips as the running back one. I shouldn't even say surprised. It's probably definitely happening. The guy looks explosive and he can still catch. So maybe White is that pass catching back next year or something like that. And
I think the main takeaway from all that is it's hard to figure out what running backs in Florida are going to do. All right. So this last guy, we'll finish it up with this, then we'll hit a commercial and then we'll get out of here. I'm going to read these trades that have been going off. And then I want you to tell me who the guy is that I'm talking about. All right. 25 second, 26 second, 27 second, 25 third, 27 first, 25 second, 25 second, 26 second, Jatavian Sanders. Those are all the straight up trades that have been going on. Who am I talking about?
Pass.
Rico Dowdle.
Oh, nice. Rico Dowdle. I like it. No way to guess that.
What's your valuation on Rico Dowdle at this point?
Cowboys have shown that they do this a lot. They did this with Pollard, where it's a guy they drafted, and eventually they gave him a shot to start, and then he moves on and gets a starting role somewhere else. In this last game, put up over 100 yards. He's doing this even with the backup quarterback and really just one receiver. There's no tight end, no other wide receiver too. Technically, Cooks came back, but anyway, he's looking decent. I think he'll be a guy that's flex worthy next year as well. So the ones that I heard for a third, I'm fine with. If it's not tight end premium, I'm fine with the Sanders one. I do believe in Sanders, but they also believe in their tight end number 2 in Tommy Tremble. Yeah. So it's not just a clear cut opportunity share for him. So yeah, I'm in on that, especially for a contender who just, maybe you lost CMC just now and needs, flex or something like that.
Well, next week we'll talk about Bryce Young. All right, you guys, we're gonna get out of here, but real quick, I'm gonna play a commercial for you, so stick around. I don't know if you play DFS, but this is a fantasy show, right? And the main crux of this is that Dynasty is all year; it's year round. So we're gonna be with you week 17, week 18, postseason, whatever, right? But while games are going on in the NFL, if you get knocked out of the playoffs. If you win your league in week 17, there's still week 18 games. And the great thing about football is that you may not necessarily be playing fantasy, but you can still play DFS. So go ahead and download the Fast Draft app. You can play DFS in season and you can play it in week 18. I'm sure there are going to be playoff weeks in DFS. So check this out.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith-Njigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests, and our best ball contest for 2025 are coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Fastdraft.app. Use Big Boned as your promo code. All right, pop quiz before we get out of here. Wide receiver 7 in PPR. Who is it?
AJ Brown.
Jackson Smith-Njigba. What? All right. Thank you all for watching. I hope you win this week. Have a fun week, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.
JSN Top 10